Welcome to the Lucentlands Podcast. We have identified the need for a platform where industry leaders and innovators in the agricultural sector can share their stories and inspire others. We hope you enjoy listening to this as much as we enjoyed speaking to these people. Welcome. Marianne, thank you for your time and coming to chat to us. Last time we saw you was in 2019.
Yes, pre-COVID,
and now we're in post-COVID, and what a wonderful space.
Yes.
Do you also experience there's more energy than even before COVID?
It's definitely a resurgence of energy, and you know what? That
It's
I'm
a different
grateful.
energy.
Yeah, and I'm grateful every day. This morning we were saying that when you get out of your car and you need to go into a building, you don't have to look for the blinking mask.
Yes.
But it's because we work in all sectors of agriculture, and this is to that. There's a lot of negative and there's also a lot of positive being said. So that's why I say the energy is different.
Yeah.
You walk into a room, you don't know how to approach it. Are you going to be greeted with a lot of negativity? Is everybody going to be positive? Did it rain? Didn't it rain? Did it rain too much? And so it's, I wouldn't say walking on eggshells, but it's like you need to know the lay of the land to
Read the room.
yes.
Yeah, no, I agree.
But from our side, we are incredibly positive about the agricultural industry at the moment.
Yeah, I think the biggest advantage, and I dare to use the word advantage of COVID, is really that it forced us to do things differently. And how much we nowadays hate virtual meetings. It was a lifeline, for just to continue.
But it
with
still
business.
has a place.
And that is the point. It definitely has a place. But to rather integrate it with face to face, and I think that's the best of both worlds. And yeah,
And it's delightful to be able to sit across a table from you and actually enjoy a cup of coffee with you and not have to speak to you on Zoom. And I think it would be really great if you tell us what you do, what your motives are for that. Over to you, Marianne.
well, thank you for the opportunity. And before we start with my story, I just want to thank you because I regard both of you as people who give energy. Because there are two types of people. The one type is sucking all the energy they can from everybody around them, and they simply don't have the ability to project or to give energy. So thank you. You are two energy givers.
And the compliment goes straight back to you. You've always been an energy giver, which is why we wanted to come and speak to you. So thank you.
Thank you. So my career story started when I had to decide what to study. And I had a grandfather who was a farmer, so I was can't say brought up on a farm, but I often had the opportunity to visit my grandparents on a farm, and that must have played a role. I thought at that time, animal science sounds, like a very interesting agricultural topic because I love animals. However, I was really on high school level. I was really fond of cooking. Mm-hmm. Believe it or not, I was fond of cooking. So then, background to that is my mom used to be what is huishoudkunde?
Domestic science or home economics?
Home economics,
yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Nowadays they call it a very fancy consumer science.
Okay.
But home economics.
Yes.
And I enjoyed that at school, so it was sort of, something that I could do. But then, I thought I was going to be bored to death if I must just, and the naaldwerk part was absolutely not.
Needlework.
The needlework part was definitely not my strength. So nevertheless, I sit with the University of Pretoria's yearbook in agriculture, and the further I go through all the courses, then obviously I started at animal science, but then I thought, wow, there are other things I can do. career guidance at that time, I think nothing has changed. On secondary school level, it's not really very encouraging. So then I caught the food science course. And at that time, University of Pretoria hosted the course as an agricultural. So it's a BSc Agri Food Science.
Okay.
So you did your first years with chemistry and science and chemistry, science, biology and maths, which those subjects were not my strength on school level. So I was really always very good at languages, Afrikaans, English. I always, sort of a natural language person, and I got distinctions while it was a battle, to battle through the science and the maths. So my grade 11, so it was graad standaard 9.
Yeah, standaard
9. So he was very shocked when he learned that I was considering study in a BSc direction. He said, "Why? Look at your results. Look at your marks. You're a brilliant language person. Just go do a BA and that's please."
Or become a teacher.
Or become a teacher, but really he can't see, and that he sent me now to university going to BSc. And I think that's something that probably assisted me to encourage me to really work hard. But I had to work hard because I was not a natural scientist at that time. When I started studying, it was tough the first year. But then, when you got to follow the food science, food technology, lots of microbiology, plant pathology. And what I enjoyed most as my studies progressed was the agricultural subjects. I really enjoyed the plant science, and I even had animal science. So it was really fun for me. And I think that's when it probably sort of became clear that I'm not going to become South Africa's best food scientist. However, after completing my degree, it really opened doors for me. I specialized in fruit and vegetable technology in my 4th year, which I really and thoroughly enjoyed. So I think that gave me, lots of background about not only primary agriculture, but obviously the processing part and the whole value chain. So maybe it's also, for context, also necessary to know that I got my first job, not as a food scientist, but I was lucky enough to get an opportunity at the company was Fed Food in those days. Today it's known as Food Corp. So it's just like a company with multiple sort of different types of food companies.
Like a pioneer foods, that type of roads or
Exactly. So tabletop, was amongst them, and I was at that time, fruit and vegetables. I realized that's where I need to be, and they also had lots of milling companies. And also meat processing, so it was really very diverse company. But I applied for a marketing training position because I just realized throughout my studies that I certainly don't see myself working in a food factory or a laboratory, and I think that was a very wise decision that I made because I'm definitely not the true scientist. But I realized that the whole world of food science was very interesting. So I was the first person in the history then of the then Fed Food to be appointed as a marketing intern with my BSc Food Science, while all the others have BCom, and I was the first woman, to.
What year was this?
So, that was 1986.
Fantastic. But the reason why I'm asking that is not to find out how old you are. It is because, and when we spoke to somebody the other day also, it was, and you.
Times have changed a lot since then, and actually
Girls
you would have
didn't go into agriculture.
You would have been a pioneer, in fact, and as you say, you were the first woman to be appointed in that position. So
and and it was not easy because you walk right into men's domain, marketing, But it was really, a wonderful time. And it was actually, the program was structured in such a way, we spent about 2 or 3 months at each company within the Vet Food Group. So, I mean, we traveled to Walvis Bay at the Saldanha sardines canning factory. And then Schweizer Reneke at the mill there, and there you work with the CEO who must have been, I think, 90 by then, and they still work when they were 90. And then he just, stared at this female, that's now in this program. So he said, "Now you come here." So he made me work at the switchboard. And at the time, the switchboard still had that,
Oh my goodness!
And remember, I'm not a technical person. And then I, after the second or the third or the fourth time that I cut a call off, that I was supposed to put through to him, then he called me in and he said, "No, you are useless." I said, "Yes, I am, because I will never be a good receptionist. So please send me in where the boys are in the factory." And then I got my gear, and then so I ended up working in the mill. Okay, so but so nevertheless, so that's my journey. And always, sort of in the men's world, where my career took me. But my experience is that you just have to work hard and stand your stand, and not allowed to be intimidated. Not always easy, but today I am in a position to guide other young ladies who are entering the world of agriculture. Okay, so my career developed, and I worked among other for a fresh fruit exporter. At the time, I was manning the Transvaal office when it was still Transvaal, which was very exciting. I mean, then I, got to know fruit and vegetable farmers, doing procurement. Sometimes go overseas, so it was a very exciting time. And soon after my career with them then ended, it was sort of a mutual decision, because they decided to close, the Transvaal office. I decided to start working for myself, which was very brave at the time, because I didn't have the funding to do that, and also not necessarily the experience.
Well, that's the best way to do it.
That's the best way to do it. There were opportunities, and we went into quality assurance on behalf of growers and suppliers to retailers, because what often happened with retail, if they ordered too much, they'll just let you know, sorry, no, quality reject. But back at the ranch, it's just because they over-ordered.
Yes.
So we got involved, and we represented several, especially one of the leading retailers. I probably will not now mention names. But so that was actually a very good opportunity to get into that sort of sphere. And so from then on, my career just developed, working also with industry organizations, doing promotions for the plum industry, because at the time there was a problem with plums in overseas markets, and they started to lose market share. It was a battle, and then we had a conversation about it, and I said, but South Africans don't eat plums because they don't know plums, and they don't know how to treat plums. And if they just know how wonderful a ripe plum tastes,
yes,
because when you buy it on retail store level, it is
so green.
It's an awful product. It's sour. So that was very exciting. So I had a partner, and we started in-store promotions.
What sort of years are we talking now?
We're talking about the 2000, about 2003 around.
Okay.
There. Yeah. So my career took me, to several very interesting spaces, and I also. While being involved in the fruit and the vegetable industry, then started organizing conferences, and that's how my journey with conference organizing started. And the first one we organized in 2000, because at that time there was really no local event for the fresh produce industry. So we did it as, we just called it the National Fresh Produce Conference. And it really grew to be a good success. And then we merged with the citrus industry, who also at the time had a citrus symposium. And then it became all fresh, and we presented all fresh conferences for many years. And then, you know, that's how things evolve in our industry. There comes a time when you realize, you know, that, you know, you need to really keep on developing, keep on innovating. Otherwise, you know, you will get into a situation where the repetition results in an event then, you know, sort of flatten off and then goes down. So I got out of that. And then Agrijobs, you know, started. And how that started, my husband was working for a vegetable seed company. And that was also now 20 or 25 or 30 years ago. And even at that time, they were battling to find the agronomist with the 2 to 3 years experience. So we started to sort of, you know, referring candidates to companies, and then we decided, well, it's a business. So for many years, it was like a business that we keep sort of on the back burner and activate it when a company approaches us and say, well, you know, they need people. And then after the several years that I worked for the Produce Marketing Association, also organizing conferences, and I decided, and that was about 7 years ago.
And that was a big deal to organize all of that.
Yes.
PMA must have been quite something.
It was really a very good experience, international experience, you know, traveling to United States and Europe. It was great. But again, you know, there's a time when you realize that you know, the Americans, they're really very innovative and they have big plans, but they don't always understand how to do business in other countries. And I think Africa is never an easy country, and especially South Africa. I mean, they see us as a first world country, which we certainly, you know, maybe not. But you know, in the bigger scheme of things, we have more challenges than most other countries who have first world status. And it's just that they keep on wanting to do things the American way, and the South African farmers and the people who are involved, and myself. I mean, we have very strong opinions about how to do things, and we succeeded, for a number of years. So then it was also time for me to say, well, I think let them continue their journey. It's time for me also to start focusing, because as you can hear, I mean, it's difficult to track what I did when, because I was sort of doing everything at the same time, and I think it was time. And then I realized the opportunity for me is really to keep on doing the good work that we've done or started doing while I was working for the Produce Marketing Association, and that's to encourage young people to study towards horticulture or crop science or soil science, because even at that time it was becoming a problem. And as a result, Agrijobs was really just revitalized. And I'm quite proud to say that with my involvement with universities on career development and graduate development, the Stellenbosch University then approached us to say, well, you have your Agrijobs website. What if we give you seed funding and we upgrade this to become an agricultural career portal, a resource for not only students who are studying agriculture in terms of what's awaiting for them in terms of careers, but also for prospective students on secondary school level, because that is a big issue.
Yes.
Very few of them know what agriculture is, because not all of them are have the sort of the privilege to grow up on farms. And they're not aware of the opportunities, and that's what we do with the website. It's a resource for young people to go and just get a glimpse of career opportunities in the entire value chain, not only on primary production level. And as a result, today the website boasts it's a busy website, and although it functions as a job portal, because Agrijobs primarily is recruitment agent. But because of the challenges that we experience with finding people with appropriate qualifications and experience, And also what we've seen, the aging issue in our industry. At one stage, we sort of, there are some sectors where you could really, I often will tell them when we were in a boardroom, and I say, well, all we need to do now is to just put, a roof for the old age home, because all of us are now, ready for the old age home. Where are the young people? Yes. And then they say, yeah, but we don't find them easily, and young people nowadays, they don't want to work. So, we get all sorts of prejudice against young people, and while there might be an individual or two who doesn't like to work, but most young people, they just do things differently and they see things differently, and I think that's what companies with that kind of attitude about young people, just simply they don't know young people because they don't know what value they will bring to companies. So this is my focus, is to persuade the industry to just, have a fresh look on your pipeline, because the guys, I know people live longer nowadays, but one day, maybe few of your senior managers just drop. It can happen, drop down, or a bus hit them, or whatever bad things can happen. Exactly. And then you'll be in trouble. And I still think that we're not there yet. So I still have lots of work to do with my education journey, to help companies understand that they need young people. And the best way to employ young people is obviously when they freshly graduated. And for companies, they're so spoiled. They want the 2 to 3 years, experience before they will employ somebody. And if that is all the company's attitude, how will a graduate, obtain experience if they are not given a chance? So, and that has then resulted in us at Agrijobs establish AGRI Career Connect, which is then the official let me say, resource or tool to enable companies to meet graduates. And so we do it by organizing like in expo format on campus, bring agricultural companies across the value chain, of course, and to come and expo what they do, and then invite obviously the final years who are about to graduate at the end of the year, or who must make a decision in terms of are they going to do a post-grad qualification, and also first and second and third years, because many of them are so confused, while they study, they're not sure if they study, the most appropriate qualification. They don't know what they're going to do. They're despondent. And this is an excellent way to expose them to what career opportunities are available. So we hosted the first AGRI Career Connect in that format in 2019, and then COVID hit us. So for us, it was obviously a challenge. But fortunately, I have to compliment universities. They were very fast out of the tracks to convert or to transition to online. They realized,
they had to. They
had to.
Yeah. It was a do or die.
It was do or die. So that made it easier for us then. So we then, in the first year of the severe COVID, what is inperking? Lockdown. So then, we were able to, for Stellenbosch and University of Pretoria, because that were the two universities we worked with at that point in time, a virtual event, which worked very well. So the companies were surprised. They didn't think it can work, but it worked very well. To such an extent that that this year we could expand to 5 more universities.
Oh,
so we had
wow.
7 universities.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah, so because obviously it's nice to work with universities that you know well, and it's relations coming over years. But we realized that there's also a need in other provinces. So So we added University of Free State, Northwest, KwaZulu-Natal, and also Limpopo and Mpumalanga.
That's
So-
all happened this year.
Yes, yes.
Wow, Marianne,
Yes,
that's amazing.
Yeah, so because of the success of the first, virtual event, it was possible for us to upscale and to do it. And it's for companies a big eye opener because they all have their sort of universities of preference where they try to recruit from. And I mean, obviously, region, geographics play a big role. But there are companies who are also expanding. If they're Western Cape based, they're expanding to Gauteng and other provinces. So for them, it was really a great opportunity to meet, students or graduates from other universities. And while we talk about this geographical issue, we need to put the challenges on the table, and I'm going to do it.
Please.
It is for us who work with universities throughout South Africa, it's very interesting when you come across students and graduates who have been brought up in rural areas, managed to get to a university, good schools, because of the parents. And normally those parents, one of them is a teacher.
Yes, very
It's
often.
amazing just how, the teacher will
The spark of education gets passed down.
Absolutely. And they will go to lots of extent, to ensure that their children get good education. So a few examples and almost case studies. There was a young lady, she grew up in the Eastern Cape, but small, rural area. So she went there, primary school, but then the mom decided, and she had a family member somewhere in the Free State, so she decided her girl must go to none other than quite a big town, not big town, but a bigger town in the Free State, to go to high school there. Bethlehem. Imagine now this little girl from a rural area in Eastern Cape going to Bethlehem, which is the high school. It's double medium, but it's very much Afrikaans sort of culture. But she went there in is it hostel, Koshuis?
Yeah.
Yes, Koshuis, a hostel. I was
Yeah.
waiting. I was going to ask.
Boarding school.
Where did
Boarding
she stay? Yeah.
Yeah, boarding school, high school. No? So
Because
from grade 8.
they would be boarding there because
Yes.
there's a lot of the
Yeah.
farmers in the
Yeah.
area would have the kids in the.
Yeah, so from grade 8. So that's also where she also started to pick up some Afrikaans, and we're also going to touch on that. And then she did so well that she then got a bursary to study at the University of the Free State. So this young girl from the Eastern Cape, and I interviewed her when I was at the University of the Free State for, we just had some meetings there to prepare for AGRI Connect. So, I had the opportunity to meet her because she was going to graduate, and therefore it was really an eye opener, and also just to see the attitude that she has about going anywhere, because she is used to taking your roots out for a while, then go to a complete strange place, complete different region and also culture, and just make it work. So I often also come across other universities where we find, and I think the Western Cape is a good example here. We find it quite hard to persuade students who studied at Stellenbosch University to take up a job in Gauteng, Limpopo, and Mpumalanga. They simply just shy away from it. And if you do manage to convince them, then they stay maybe for 2 to 3 years. There are exemptions, okay? But that is just a general perception that I have, that it is a struggle.
But you said you had an issue that you wanted to raise.
Yes, that's my issue.
Oh.
Is that it's so hard. And also, it's interesting that, because Stellenbosch University is really, the Agri-Sciences faculty It's top notch. It's very high standard. So obviously, students want to
It's
study.
the best in Africa.
It's the best in Africa. There you go. We've got now official sort of verification.
Yeah.
But what we see is that there are also industry organizations who prefer to work, with this university because of the very strong horticulture focus, which is true. I mean, it's a huge horticulture department in comparison with other universities who had to merge their horticulture and crop science and soil science into one sort of department. So it's a complete different story. But problem is that this is now causing that there's a concentration of highly trained horticulturists in the Western Cape. And yes, they do, obviously they are high in demand, but the Western Cape can absorb also, so many graduates, with that specialization. And that's where I come into the picture, where I'll tell them, but you know what? The world is your oyster. So start by just working for a few years in the wonderful province of GP, which is my province. It's Gauteng. Yes, I know it's got its challenges. Or Limpopo or Mpumalanga. And then I get the response, you know what, we want to stay in the Western Cape.
But I say, my in-laws live in Nelspruit. If I've said it to many people, if I have to move out of the Western Cape, I'll go to the Lowveld.
Yeah.
It's beautiful.
It is.
Yes, it's hot in summer, but it's hot here as well.
Yeah. But humid.
An hour away from Kruger, 2 hours away from a tropical beach in Mozambique. It's paradise up there.
Yeah. Do you work for Mpumalanga tourism? I just wondered.
It will. I love the
I
Lowveld.
agree with you.
I really love the Lowveld.
It is very beautiful. I love it because for me, it's quite exotic because you go there and you just never know. There could be an animal behind any bush.
Yeah, like you've
very
had the
beautiful.
Dutch hippos in Letsitele with that
Yes.
thing. Well, you say that. Is there a way that universities can do like an exchange student thing? Where they get the...
That's a brilliant idea. I think we should pursue it because in the same way that international universities, they have,
Yes.
especially Wageningen University, and I also had the privilege about a month ago to visit the Haas University in Den Bosch in the Netherlands, and wow. But maybe we will have time to just briefly touch on that. But they are working closely with Stellenbosch University, and they've just recently renewed their agreement. And this is going to be also one of the focus areas, is exchange student programs. And where I, would like to play a role, and that's the reason for my visit there, is I would like to see that extended on internship level as well. So for graduates to go and work in the industry in the Netherlands, because the Haas University is actually owned by an industry organization.
Okay.
Okay.
And you must see the facilities. So the industry there realized that the mainstream universities do not, give the output of caliber of students that they want. So
In agriculture specific.
yeah, focusing on horticulture, obviously, because it's quite big in the Netherlands, but also animals. And then they've got a third component which they incorporate in the horticulture and the animal programs, and that's business, agribusiness development and agribusiness management.
Right.
So, I mean, what a brilliant combination, and that's what's needed in South Africa. Is in addition to your science background, is to pursue courses in management, because there's quite a gap. We've got a gap in terms of age that I'm roughly saying, between age 30 and 40, we've got a shortage of managerial skills in agriculture. So that's actually a brilliant idea if we can get universities to, sort of on that level.
South African universities.
Yeah, do it in South Africa. It's the same principle, but do it in South Africa.
But like you said, you had between Pretoria and Stellenbosch, and now you've got KwaZulu-Natal, Free State, and the children from rural areas are all exposed to agriculture because often enough the parents as farm workers.
Yeah.
And they get to go to a university, but they can't afford Stellenbosch or Pretoria. So they go to Mpumalanga or KwaZulu-Natal, but they're not known for the agricultural things.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
I think we have a project for. So I'm in. Are you in?
Well, let's talk about this. We can go
You say yes and figure it out later.
Yes, sounds familiar.
Yeah.
Well, but that's really a good idea, and I think the time is ready because at the time of Stellenbosch University, the agri-sciences faculty, agreeing to support this process, and that's exactly also their approach. Is not only to have this website exclusive only for Stellenbosch students, because you would imagine that is, what people could think. They put a financial investment in this, and then they expect exclusivity. No, Professor Dani Brink, who's the Dean of Agri-Sciences, has the vision to say no, but all the universities must get involved and support this process, because all of us, he said, meaning all universities in South Africa, are facing the challenge that we don't want to see our graduates battling to find jobs. And that summarizes their attitude, and I can see that kind of cooperation could be possible.
I've got another question, and with quite a few of the other people we've spoken to, is that we're talking about graduates here. So it's a person that's already decided he wants to be in agriculture.
Or she.
A person.
Yes.
Yeah.
A they.
Yes.
So they've already decided they want to be in agriculture. So they want to be in somewhere in the value chain with that. But how do we get the kids in high school level, even primary school level, exposed to this? Because they don't know what about Agri Careers Connect just for high schools?
Well, this is absolutely spot on. This is what should be happening. What I can share with you is pre-COVID, when we had the on-site or on-campus events. At that time, we organised alongside the events, and that was now with Pretoria and Stellenbosch, what we call a teachers' event. So we invite specific teachers from, whatever the university sort of, feeding area would be.
Well, Stellenbosch can be anywhere.
Yeah, it's huge. So, but we then invited, especially we focused on the biological science teachers, science and also maths. Also then we extended that to any teacher who would like to make a difference by helping young people finding a good career opportunity. Because our perception, and I think it's more than a perception, I think it's safe to say that it is a prevailing sort of misconception, is that on high school level, teachers will not necessarily promote agriculture as a career opportunity, because they probably have misconceptions about agriculture. It's too dangerous, in rural areas or on farms, or you
just don't interest them,
because they don't know. They don't know what opportunities agriculture really offer. And that was very successful, because now we have the expo then on site with the companies and the students visiting. So we also then ask the teachers to bring along at least 3 of their grade 11 or grade 10 or grade 11. Grade 12 is a bit tough, because we normally hosted this towards the end of the year. I mean, they probably
you need to catch them earlier in a way.
So that's why we then asked them to identify strong students who have maths and science, because we probably would like to encourage them to do a BSc degree, but with some interest in agriculture, or if they really don't know what they want to study, bring them so that we can showcase what's happening in our industry. And then we normally we invite a younger staff member of companies to come and talk to the teachers, so that we want to sort of showcase. It's not only oomies and tannies in the industry. There are young, vibrant people with agricultural qualifications.
People that the young people can relate to.
That's the thing. So, and that worked well. So, we invited ZZ2, we invited, I think it was the toy. Yeah, invite sort of, and also input supply companies or an exporter, so that worked very well. And all of them did a great job to sort of showcase in their company's sort of situation how this is a value chain approach, that they will also need industrial engineers, and they will need IT or a software developer. Yeah. And I think that is what sort of was great about that. So obviously online it's very tough to involve schools with an online event. So when we talk about 2023, we have a solution, and this will exactly be our focus again, to reach school learners, because I agree with you. It's far better to sort of plant that seed at an early stage, so that they are sort of motivated when they have to make a decision in terms of study.
I've been involved before we started Lucentlands. I obviously did weddings and functions and families and all that, and I was involved in one of the schools in Worcester quite a bit with their Mr. and Mrs. Worcester Gymnasium pageant. And the interesting thing about that was it wasn't the Mr. and Mrs. Populars from the school that was part of the pageant. Anybody that wanted to be part of this thing had to fill out a form, and you pay like a 10 Rand or 50 Rand or whatever to enter, and then you would come for an interview. And I was part of that for 9 years. So I would be part of the preliminary judging, if you want to call it judging, but there would be 3 or 4 other people also. And then the kid would come and sit in front of you, and he's got a piece of paper. Normally on there would be who he is, what grade he is, what's your 5-year plan, what's your 10-year plan, kind of thing, what's your interest, all this. And then we would have a set list of questions if you like, really nothing to ask them. I'll quickly look through this and just kind of figure out where their interest is, and then I would chat to them. And then you've got 3 minutes. It's like the speed dating.
Okay.
And there were many children, and they were bright. And because you can hear the way that they talk to you, and what they've written down there is that they have thought about some things.
Yeah.
And there was 2. There was a girl and there was a boy. And as it was, both of them were black. But they both wrote on the, what do you want to be one day as a CEO? So I said to him, a CEO of what? No, I want to be a CEO. I said, are you going to make something? Are you going to sell something? Are you going to, what? And it was like as if I threw cold water on him. He didn't have no idea what.
Oh.
Yeah.
I need to say that now.
Yeah. And then there was another girl, and I said, okay, same, I want to be a CEO. So I said, okay, if money wasn't part of the equation, you didn't have to work to buy a house or car or whatever, what would you do? What do you love? And she said, I love art. So I said, okay, so you could maybe open a small art gallery, so you can start making money selling art, maybe doing your own, and then before you know it, you're a CEO. She was like, oh, I never thought about it that way.
Wow.
There was another boy, he had something, a whole big thing written out, and I want to be a teacher one day. But before that, there was a part that was scribbled out. So I said to him, what was there? No, he said, my dad said, I can't write that. He wants to be a professional dancer. And this is before TikTok. So who says he can't be a professional dancer? Because his dad says he must write down, he wants to be a teacher one day. It is, I think everybody that's in careers are not inspiring the young kids to tell them what is available out there. Not just in agriculture, in everything. It's you've got a teacher standing in a class who's teaching them. We would call it bedrijfs, but it's now called business studies, like
Business science?
Business science.
Yeah, I don't know what it's called now.
Yeah, okay, we get the gist.
When,
we get the
when
gist
I
of
was
it.
at school, you could choose between maths and that. So if you were crap at maths, you took that thing. But it's, you've got a teacher standing there teaching kids how to run a business or become an entrepreneur,
Yeah.
but they're not even allowed to sell cookies at school anymore
Yeah.
to be an entrepreneur. We need to really push that.
Yeah, yeah. In support of this story, wonderful story that you are telling. At the time when we hosted, when I was still with the PMA, the Produce Marketing Association, at the time we called it the PMA Agri-Food Career Fairs. So at University of Pretoria, we actually had a very clever way of connecting with school learners. At the time, I had a good relationship with the junior Tikkie department. And every year they hosted a grade 11 top performer function. So it's tough, because what if you're number 11 and then you're not invited? So that bothered me all along. But nevertheless, here you have again, the University of Pretoria's catchment area for students, or where they will be, looking for prospective students, invite the top 10 learners of all those schools. So you're looking at about almost 2,000 in total visiting the campus. So it's an entire event thing, lasting about 4, 5, 6 hours, where they entertain them and, obviously show off the university, because that's the reason, the purpose of inviting them, because they want to convince the top 10 learners, to apply for studying at University of Pretoria. So, the head of the junior Tikkie and I then hatched a brilliant plan. So this event was always held in the aula. And also below the aula is a huge auditorium like your Linder auditorium, yeah. But below the aula is the Rautenbach Hall, which is a huge expo hall. So that's always where the different faculties would have their stalls, veterinary science and what's it, actual science, whatever. Law.
Yeah, there was probably few people there.
And agriculture. Well, imagine now, let's say there's got 12 faculties. I mean, then they sort of disappear in that big hall. So then he said, why don't we do an agricultural expo in the same hall? He said,
while this thing was on.
Yeah, he said he's the decision maker in terms of this event, because it is his event, he organizes, he can say who will be there. So we did that, and in fact we had about 30 companies and industry organizations then having booths, because it's like an expo structure. And there the faculties are over there, the 12 faculties, and here the rest of the big Rautenbach Hall is filled with the agricultural industry. So the grade 11 learners who then walked through it, couldn't understand what's happening here and why. I mean, why agriculture? And then, some of them would come to us and say, where's the veterinary science? And they say, oh, no, it's just over there. But, go through our... And she says, what is this? I said, no, well, it's showing all the careers in agriculture. And she says, agriculture? Oh, no, I don't want to do that. I said, fine, go and find the vet science. But we had, such wonderful response. One girl, when she arrived at one of the seed companies, they had really, went big, big or go home, and they had displayed how seed breeding takes place. So, but they had lots of, examples of how it's done. And this young girl just, when she arrived there, she stopped there and she could not get enough. She'd keep on asking questions and she couldn't believe what she'd seen. And then it turned out, she's in grade 11, she already, had at the time been selected for, medical, to become a medical doctor.
And that's rare as hen's teeth to actually be want to be accepted for that.
Well, absolutely. So she's up there, she obviously made it, to be selected. And then she disclosed to the company there, she said, okay, here's the story. I've been selected, to study medical science, but I hate blood. And look at what you're doing here. I want to work with plants, I want to do this. She went back and convinced her parents, please allow me to study plant sciences because I want to become a seed breeder.
So it made the difference to that one person.
It made
All
a
of that
difference,
difference
to that one
that
person.
you know of.
Unfortunately, the parent, because some parents,
Yeah.
the parents decide what you're going to become. And especially if they are very ambitious and they've got the ambitions, on behalf of the school,
So how many doctors have you met that say to me, I will never, if I could have chosen, I would never have become a doctor?
And how many doctors,
Lawyers
consulting rooms, they'll say, and if they ask me what I do and I tell them I work in agriculture, and not one day is the same, they say, I regret sitting here.
Well, I always make the analogy, if you stand around a braai, and if you're putting into a group of people you've never met before, you're standing around a fire or in a party, wherever, what do you do? What do you do? And you will go around. Oh, yeah, Peter is an accountant. Oh, okay, cool. You're a lawyer. Oh, what kind of law? No, we do divorces. Oh, okay. And then you come to like photographer. Really? You do weddings? And I said, no, I do agriculture. And it's like, what? And it's probably the same with everything.
Yeah.
As soon as you deviate from the norm.
Yeah, no, that's and that's where the job satisfaction comes in. When you, all the effort to get all the companies there. If there's even if it's for one person, but we know that we definitely influence lots of young people because they simply don't know what agriculture is all about, and that will be my driving force for the future in expanding Agri Career Connect, and it's for two reasons. Firstly, to help young people to understand, what wonderful career opportunities are in the entire value chain. If you can't do the BSc Agric, you can do a diploma. You can do so on so many levels. You can qualify yourself. And where there's a will, there's a way. You can keep on upskilling yourself with additional courses. You need not necessarily all, go to master's level or to PhD.
But not just a BSc Agri thing. Let's say there's a pupil that really wants to be an engineer. They've made up their mind they're going to be an engineer. But they don't know that you could be designing pack houses, or you could be designing pack lines, or
exactly
a tractor, or a new plow, or
Dams. All kinds of stuff. Agriculture needs engineering a lot of the time.
Yes, but they all look into the big glass buildings in town, or to a big bridge or something like that.
They don't think agriculture.
Yeah.
Agriculture is not sexy, you see. Everybody wants to be in the, like you said, they want to work, they want to be a CEO. They want to drive the smart car, wear the shiny shoes.
I always say you can't drive a smart car on a dirt road.
They want that. But they look past the fact that what agriculture is and all the different support structures there are to agriculture. And I mean, what you're doing, showcasing that and showing people. And as you say, if the younger you can show them, the better. So your mission is really very, very important.
Absolutely, Louise. And now when you both refer to engineering, job satisfaction, that's my food. That's my food. That's my daily food. So one young guy, I met him at University of Pretoria when he was in his second year studying industrial engineering. And I was surprised to meet him at one of the events that we organized. And then he said to me, and I asked him, because normally we try to get industrial engineers to visit the expos, but they sort of, again, they don't have any idea what happens in agriculture, so they don't even consider a career in agriculture. But nevertheless, so he told me, no, he already has a BSc agriculture economics and animal science that he obtained from the University of Free State. And in his final year, when he had to decide what he's going to do with his life and his career, he got exposed to the wonderful world of industrial engineering. And what absolutely caught him was the ability to improve systems, because this is what industrial engineering is all about. Although you learn a lot about different disciplines in the whole engineering space, definitely systems efficiency and to improve productivity, that is a major focus, and that just grasped him. So when he completed his final year, he talked to his parents and said, well, this is really what I want to do. So he started all over again from first year studying in industrial engineering. And he completed his degree last year.
So he's 42.
Yeah. You see, that is after 8 years of study.
Mm.
But then it was what a pleasure to help him to find a job, and it obviously didn't take long.
Exactly.
For us to help him find a job, because imagine those two disciplines.
Yes.
Agricultural science plus industrial engineering.
So what is he doing now?
So we placed him, unfortunately not in the animal or the livestock industry, and we tried to, but I think for the animal and livestock industry, I think industrial engineering perhaps is still more sort of a new space for them. I know many companies in the fruit and vegetable wholesale packing, retail distribution industry. So I approached one of them. I said, this is an opportunity that you are not going to let slip through your fingers. Here's the CV, and here's my testimony, because I've been working with him ever since I met him in his second year, in his third year, in his final year, and he has been helping us by also bringing more his fellow industrial engineer students along. So he was interviewed and he got a job. And today, not only is he the industrial engineer, working in the factory, it's actually quite a big processing and pre-packing plant, and they've got banana ripening rooms, but they also manage a few farms, fruit farms in Mpumalanga. So now he's assigned to the farms to also start improving systems there, and not only on packing level, but also from production. And imagine this is a new world awaiting industrial engineers, because you can make a huge difference with
and he'll never again look for work ever in his life again.
No,
because if he implements it there,
Probably not.
If he implements it there, it can be replicated in Brazil or in America or wherever.
Yeah, so it's actually quite remarkable. So, Marianne, it's obvious that you are passionate about this, and as you say, it brings you incredible job satisfaction. What are your challenges and your wish list?
So the biggest challenge, I would say, is to convince companies to think out of the box when it comes to people development. They still tend to, wanting the agronomist or the horticulturist or the animal scientist with 2 to 3 years experience. And for many reasons. There's economic pressure, and has been, with us for several years. So companies don't want to pay, too much for, in terms of salary. So experience sort of costs money. So therefore they think it will be cheaper cheaper experience that you then bring into your company. But I think it's a complete sort of old-fashioned way of looking at people development, and so the challenge is to convince companies to rather look at bringing more freshly graduate or people with any qualification into their system, because it's an easy way to meet people, to see will they adapt to your company's culture, can they roll up sleeves, what their attitudes are, and if it's not working out and it's, let's say, 6 months or a year internship, you can say I wish you well, but at least you send that young person away with a year's experience. And cultures, there are different cultures, so not everybody's going to work at every company. So find the diamond among the people that you employ on entry level, basis, and then make an effort to keep the good people. And we talked about it that some companies have the perception that young people are lazy or they don't stay. Maybe it's true, but if you really find that diamond who brings the energy to your company and the vision, and young people just have a completely different way of approaching problems. Give it a go, and you'll be surprised with the outcome. So that's my challenge. But we're making progress, and I want to use this as an example. We have been working with the Fresh Produce Exporters Forum. So that's an industry organization representing all fresh fruit exporters in South Africa. So there are many exporters. So this is now a project that they launched about 5 years ago, and that is to really support and encourage companies to employ interns. Fair enough. This is a black empowerment project, which is necessary, by the way, for the fresh fruit industry.
And we've met some of them. We know about it, yes.
So that's great. So when we got involved, that was 3 years ago, and because of our involvement with universities and graduates, becoming available, it was a logic step for us, to offer our assistance. So in the first year, we appointed 5 of the graduates, with fresh fruit exporters. And in the second year, which was last year, it was 13. And this year, it's now November, December, but we're on 18. So the project is growing, and the good story here is that the retention rate or the success rate of companies then offer permanent employment. We're at 65%, and that's high if you look at the number of interns that we've placed. And the good story here is now the industry has started with a base of getting bright young black people into the system, and we encourage companies not only for transformation purposes, because I often encounter the situation where some of the big corporate input supplier companies, most of them, they've got a big HR department, so most of them have internship programs, which they also then earmark for black economic empowerment. But then the same companies will approach us to say, but okay, now they need an agronomist with 2 to 3 or 4 years experience, he must speak Afrikaans because he must now work with the Afrikaans-speaking clients, the boere. And then I say, well, okay, we don't have them anymore because, there are really very few of them around. But why don't you invest in them? Go to universities if you really need then the Afrikaans-speaking, candidate, to represent your company. Get involved and invite them to come and do holiday work. So don't just do the internship program because your company will look well if it's a transformation sort of focus. But back at the ranch, you're battling to find then people that you think is that you need now to keep your customer base happy. So be pragmatic about it, and stop doing things only because you think it's the right thing to do. Surely invest in young black people because they're going to eventually be so important in your company, not only because of the transformation pressure. It should be because they are bright individuals who can make a huge difference in your company.
The transformation aspect is the last part that you should look at.
Absolutely. So okay. You asked me about challenges, and I'm now sort of.
I've got a question that might be a challenge. Okay, so we know that there is a lot of youngsters coming through the ranks that's going to be looking for work in the new year, and they might come through you. It might be, and then you get the company saying, "Yeah, but the youngsters don't want to work. They're hard to work with. They're difficult to work with." But then you also get the youngsters that expect to walk into a job and earn a CEO salary.
Yes.
I can just see, because those two will butt heads. Where does those two meet in the middle?
I think what is causing this is there's a supply demand issue here and young people's ambition. What I actually experience is that you know, most young people do realize they need to start somewhere. And I think where there's sort of a level of some arrogance, if I can put it bluntly, because I think that's what I hear you say, is, you know, demanding I want to, you know, have a high salary.
Yes. I'm an engineer now.
Yeah, and that's because there could be peers, you know, among their student colleagues or friends who are approached. And, you know, you find it in engineering, and you find it, well, especially in the sort of very scarce skills that I've already now mentioned on agronomy and soil science and crop production. So that's happening, that's really happening. So companies will approach them early in their final year, or, you know, perhaps earlier, and offer them really a nice jobs with high entry level salary, much higher than the average, and a bucky. Why? Because they're scarce. So to an extent that is creating expectations. And I think that's unfortunate, because it is not the real world. To walk out of university with
it's
a
the lucky
degree
few.
only.
Lucky and few.
The lucky and few. And that, I think that is a problem. And I think when you look at other, you know, in the industrial, commercial sort of environment, engineering, you know, some of the, and again, it's a lucky few, because we all, you know, we work nowadays more and more with engineers. I mean, not everybody just walk into a job.
No.
Again, because they don't have experience. And now the question is what role can we play, you know, to sort of mitigate, you know, this problem. And again, you know, we continue our engagement with companies, you know, to try them to understand that, you know, don't only employ the one bright guy that you've noticed at university, but employ a few. You know, budget better, and, you know, employ a few entry level students or graduates from all walks of life, and then you will be in a much better position, you know, to eventually then decide who's going to stay. Because it's with the current system, those highly sought after graduates, if they are approached by companies, you know, while they still study, chances are very high that they will, after 18 months or 2 years, you know, be approached by a competitor company, and just offer like a ridiculous higher salary, and then, you know, what will you do?
Yeah.
Obviously, you say, thank you.
Yeah.
Obviously, I'll join you. But there's something wrong with this approach, you know, I've seen it, you know, too often in my career. I think it's a matter of, you know, if they headhunted once, it will probably happen again, and maybe happen again, and then the CV ends up on my laptop. If there's trouble in that specific sector, which trouble happens
everywhere,
and then, you know, the person is retrenched, and then the person, you know, worked, you know, for 3 companies in a time frame of 4 years. And then, you know, when the CV is sent to companies, I say, yeah, this guy is not going to stay, or lady is not going to stay. And they're all right. Because you've established a pattern and a behavior of, you know, I'm just waiting for, you know, for the next thing.
Yeah, it's always that difficult thing, is that that first job, you shouldn't rush away from your first job, because people ask that question.
I agree.
The big problem is, and it's another rabbit hole to go down if we really want to, is that social media. Because all of a sudden, because he's going to buy a brand new Hilux out the box, and he's going to post a picture on Facebook.
Yeah.
And then 6 months down the line, he's got a picture with a cruiser, and you got to.
Yeah. So having said that, you know, agriculture, you know, and the different sectors go through different phases of success and you know, difficult times. And I always believe, I firmly believe in, the cycles. There are cycles of, fortune
Boom and
going
bust.
well, boom and everything goes well. And then, there's sort of checks and balances that sort of say, all of you come back. So I already see that in the human resources space. The salaries were in many sort of areas were far too high, and just from a business perspective, I just can't see how a person on a lower level of the entire scale could earn that kind of money, and how the company can remain profitable. So I think what we will see now is sort of a stabilizing situation. So salaries will not go up, as severely as it had during and I'm talking pre-COVID now. The 5 years before COVID was like a madhouse. I see balance. I see, sort of a balancing phase now, but all the industries are a bit under pressure. Even the very lucrative citrus and avocado and macadamia industries, they all face, sort of different challenges. But that's, after, booming years. So it's just time. It's a natural cycle of life that, what comes up.
What goes up must come down.
Come down, and it will go up again. And this is the message of hope for young people in our industry, because our industry is very resilient, and despite serious challenges, we will get up again, and we will become we'll find ourselves soon again in lucrative spaces, and that's what you want. You want an industry to grow. But the checks and balances must be there, to sort of just calm things a bit down.
Agriculture feeds us all, so it's got to be there. It's not like another industry which you can just say, well, it's not so important. Agriculture, 3 times a day, you need agriculture.
Absolutely, and this is my message to young people. Even if you haven't really considered a career in agriculture, you need not be an agricultural scientist to have a successful career in agriculture. You can be a marketing or a sales or IT or engineer, or there are so many other areas of specialization that have space.
But like you said, at university where they've got a faculty for agribusiness.
Yeah.
It's because it's businesses these days.
Yeah.
I could tell you can be the biggest citrus farmer, ever farmer, whatever it is you grow, cattle farmer. If you can't run a business, you can't make a profit, and you can't pay anybody, and you can't be a success. You need people to come in. It's the same with doctors. You can be the best heart surgeon or brain surgeon, but if you can't run a business, you're not going to have work.
Exactly. So that's
often
well said.
Often what I say too, and because I was involved with the schools, is that the kids would say, I don't know what I want to study. My parents said, I have to go study. I must get something behind my name. And I said, well, if you don't know what to study and you must get something, go do business management.
Yeah.
Because then you know how business works. Then you can do anything. You can work for a doctor.
Yeah.
You can be anything you want. You will know how business runs.
And that's a very valuable, advice also to give to people. And we often encounter students who are about to, finalize their studies, and they often struggle with, shall we continue with studying? And often, the resources are available to do that, so it's not, that's not going to be a prohibiting factor. But I always, tell them, find out why you really want to, continue with studying. And I mean, working with universities, I must sort of watch my my position. But I think we're all in agreement. Not everybody, should be continuing with a master's degree or even PhD. But my question to the graduate who asks me, for my advice is why.
Yes, know your why.
Know why you want to do. If you really want to do an MSc degree because you have a passion or a specific interest in a specific science-related topic or whatever the topic is, and you want to improve your knowledge and focus on that, then I say, you go ahead. You need to do that because you want to do that. I unfortunately see far too many MSc degrees on CVs, and the topics, it's like just sometimes, it seems like a recycling process. And I understand university's point of view because, that's how the funding model works, for masters and PhDs. It's a business. But then you, as an individual, you make the decision. Do you really, really want to go and investigate and research a topic that has been researched so many times before?
You're not necessarily going to earn 10,000 Rand a month more because you have that behind your...
No.
So what we also now see happening is with to an extent, the government's research capacity has been sort of declining. Okay, so let's stop that conversation there. We can discuss it some other day. But we see that the private sector now has to step in and do more research, which is a good thing. Because why? The research will then have a commercial outcome. So I will tell students or graduates, if you get the opportunity at a company, prove yourself, work hard, and if you really have a specific interest and you and the company sort of can meet each other in terms of understanding, yes, we need to know more about this topic. You convince the company to send you back to university to do a 2-year master's degree, of which you can sort of 1 year do full-time, and the other year, you used to, spend time at the company, but then you focus on a topic that the company is a real-life problem for the company, for the industry. And then, get to an outcome that can have a commercial application to solve problems. Then it's a different story.
Indeed. So we have we've started a little...
Do you want to wrap this up? Do you want to?
I think
there's a lot to say.
Well, maybe this will lead it down that way.
Because that question is exactly what she said. No, we're not going to go there.
Well, what we do is we ask the previous person that we spoke to anonymously to provide us with a question for the next guest, and it's quite fun.
He
and
doesn't
it's a
know
way
who it's for.
They don't know who it's for, and it's just out there. So this is a question, you touched on it, but I'm going to take you back there. So the question is, what changes would you like to see government make in your sector?
Can we make an appointment for another recording and another podcast? Because I think it will require us to dig a bit deeper into some of the real challenges. Despite all the gloom and doom in terms of government inefficiency, I've witnessed over the years in my career some pockets of excellence. And again, then it's about individuals who are doing it not because they, in government or they, that's in their job description, because they really want to make a difference and improve systems or improve, aspects in agriculture. So my advice would be for government is, and that's taking into account that they do have financial constraints. So I say identify the jockeys who are on the horses, or some of them will be on donkeys, but they are still jockeys. And they make sure that horse travel in a specific direction with a specific objective, with a specific focus. Or the donkey. Identify the individuals in your government structures and drill down departments. And not only on a skilled or educated level, but also, in terms of the tea lady, or the cleaning lady. Find the people who do their job with joy. Maybe it's only 25% of the workforce, we don't know. We don't know. Find them and make an effort to keep them. And then 25%, if you empower them with a little bit more resources and with a little bit more support and enable them to work with private sector, because the private sector will be key, then you'll see that you can let the other 75% disappear or retire or fire them. So that's like a wish list, and that's what I would do if I was
A magic wand.
if
Thank
I was
you.
that.
Thank you. And we'll ask you for a question as well just now. You don't have to think about it now, but we'll ask you when we're done. Is there anything else you'd like to share with us? We've chatted nicely now, but kind of maybe as a closer.
For a closing remark, I would say, if you're a young person and you need to make a decision what you're going to do with your life, try and cut out the noise from social media or the pictures of the fancy vehicles or your parents wanting you to become a medical doctor, or listen to your inner voice and try to find, what where your passion lies. Not that hobbies necessarily need to be, your career, but find a space where you are comfortable with what you can do. Develop yourself, and if you are able to do a degree or a diploma, you do that and persevere. Just get that basic qualification. During your studies, you will then finally find out what is really driving you and what you would like to do with your life. Then you upskill yourself, and not necessarily with the honors or a master's degree as we've now discussed, but there are so many other aspects that can add value to your qualification. And the last sort of thought that I would like people to think about is education is all about replacing an empty mind with an open mind. In other words, not fully packed with lots of academic stuff. That's why we get our education. Is with my degree, I'm not necessarily just going, get into the world and, show Elon Musk how to do things better. That's not what your approach should be. But replace an empty mind with an open mind. Then the sky will be the limit.
Very well said. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks. We good?
Thank you. Wonderful discussion.
Very, very, very wonderful.